world feels a bit toxic and blah these days, doesn't it? The same old people coming up with the same old solutions for big problems that still don't work. We need to change the game. Well, welcome to Women Advancing. Join me, host Kate Byrne, in this dynamic bi-weekly podcast, bringing together female founders, funders, and thought leaders. Listen to the people driving change, how they got there, how you can help, and yep, how you might just be the next one to advance. Proof that all ships rise with women at the helm. That's what happens when Women Advance with Kate Byrne. Hey everyone, it's your host Kate Byrne with Women Advancing. I can't stand it when someone tells me I can't do something. It drives me crazy. And think about it. We've actually got two choices when that happens. You can either believe them or, you can prove them wrong. My guest today, Justine Siegal, has made a career out of choosing the second option. At age 13, her coach told her she couldn't play baseball. He didn't want her on the team. She went on to make sure that he regretted it. Fast forward, she's now the co-founder of the first professional women's baseball league, looking to have their first draft on November 20th, the first woman to coach for a Major League Baseball team, the first to throw batting practice to the pros, and the founder of Baseball for All, a nonprofit giving girls everywhere the chance to play, coach, and lead the game they love. So in our conversation, we talk about what it takes to be a serial disruptor. Are you born one, or can that be taught? Someone who changes the rules instead of just playing them. We dig into courage. We dig into persistence, the power of showing up even when you're laughed at, and sometimes especially when you're laughed at, and why creating space for others is the most radical kind of leadership of all. So whether you've ever been underestimated, told to play softball, or simply asked to just shrink, this one's for you. Because as Justine reminds us, you can't be what you can't see. So she's making sure we all can. Be sure to stay to the end for KB's takeaways, and game on. Hey, Women Advancing listeners, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited post World Series to be able to have this conversation with the woman who broke the barrier by being the first woman to coach the MLB Instructional League and to pitch a group. But she's gone on to be the co-founder of the Women's Pro Baseball League, which you'll hear a little bit more about, and the Baseball for All. She's the founder of that as well. Who is this illustrious woman? None other than Justine Siegal. Justine, welcome, welcome to Women Advancing.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess a certain amount of defiance. So let's start there. You've described that moment when you were 13. And well, just tell us about that. What was that moment like when somebody said to you, you can't do that? And how did that shift, and what did you do?
So I grew up playing baseball. Along with everything else. I was always on my bike. And I had a really great time playing baseball in my local league. And then when I was about 13, I was given a new coach. And I remember he waited for everyone else to leave, so it would just be me and him. And I remember, I'm just a kid, so I remember him as like very tall and big. And he said to me that he didn't want me on his team and that girls play softball, and say anything back, but I was just thinking, like, I'm gonna play forever, right? Like,
now you've done it, buddy.
Yeah, there was just something inside me that just said, why? Like, what have I done?
Yeah, what?
It wasn't because of my skill. And so it just felt wrong. And when it felt wrong, I just decided to keep going. But admittedly, that was the beginning of my uphill battle. I didn't notice the discrimination before when I was young. People said stuff to me occasionally, but like I didn't put it together. Yeah, that was a big moment for me because I really had to just start deciding what I wanted to do. Did I want to keep playing baseball? Did I want to keep asking for permission to play baseball?
Yep.
Or I could just go to softball and frankly just be a softball star and have all these friends and be celebrated instead of having to go against a brick wall just as a child, really.
Which is ridiculous. So then I guess looking back, do you think you were born a disruptor? You must have been to a little bit. Or did that defiance evolve as kind of a self-protection in a world that said no way too often?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't think anybody's really just born being, what they say leaders are born. I think definitely leaders can be made, but
Yes.
I will say that I've always had a sense of justice my entire life, like
Yes.
looking to see what was right, what's the right thing to do. Doesn't mean I always did it, but I was always looking for it. My favorite month in elementary school was February when we learned about Black History Month. We just
Ah.
learned about just the power of the civil rights movement, things like that. Unfortunately, there was also a women's rights movement that no one decided to tell me about. But but it was this idea that we could make change, and that's something
Right.
that, I just was always very inspired by.
Right. And devoted to. Well, cool. As you've seen, because you've achieved this stunning series of firsts, as I alluded, first woman to coach for, a major league team, first to throw MLB batting practice. But that often comes with, to your point, you just referenced it. I could have done softball. I would have had a lot of friends. I would have been celebrated. And this way, you've ended up kind of going through and experiencing a lot of isolation and scrutiny. So how do you stay grounded? Like what kept you on the course?
Well, I think as youth, under 18, it's just pure stubbornness.
Yes.
I I mean, I loved baseball, and it was really the more people tried to take it away, the more I loved it. And I really had to practice more than other people because it wasn't enough to just be like an average person. Not that I was great, but I still had to be like to see if I can throw the ball correctly. And that was true even as an adult. Like they stopped to see, oh, does she bring her arm back?
Oh, wow.
So it's just something that like the harder it got, the more I loved it. But it was hard. It was very hard, and I was a very shy kid. So it was more on principles. I think I kept playing than probably common sense.
Which was also kind of amazing when I think about that. So, how do you balance between being like, the best coach or being labeled as the woman coach, which was, of course, oh, Justine, she's the lady coach. I can already hear it in my head, as opposed to, oh, Coach Siegel, right?
So I'm 50. I think that age matters. I was still at the somewhat beginning of Title IX in the sense that people are still like I played soccer with boys, right? So
Right.
at my first high school, I was the only girl to play two sports that were boys sports, right? Soccer and baseball. And of course now everyone plays soccer. So I think my age is relevant to the historical aspect of the story. I was 15 or 16 when I decided I wanted to be a baseball coach. And I told my coach who coached at camp, who I like worshiped, that I wanted to be a coach. And he laughed at me. And he said, no man would ever listen to a woman on a baseball field. And, like for me to share my dream because I was so shy, it
It
was very
was a huge
difficult.
thing.
And my stomach jumped, like not jumped, dropped.
Yeah.
But then as it kind of the day went on, I started thinking like, who is he? Like who is he to decide and how can I make this happen? And I started like creating a pathway in my mind of what was possible. And then I started, right then and there, like, how do I become a better coach? Well, let me learn as many positions as I can. So there was definitely times where I was, especially when I was younger, like, oh, you can't coach your girl,
Right.
or they had me coach 5-year-olds instead of 12-year-olds, and so I'm older than the boys who are coaching the 12-year-olds, right, so like if we're all camp instructors, I'm older than everyone, but I'm coaching 5-year-olds, and these high school kids are coaching.
You have that much more experience than everybody.
um,
And there you go.
but I ended up becoming a college baseball coach. I was assistant coach at Springfield College through the graduate program. And so I can definitely say that while it's a surprise to have a woman coach in the beginning, and I think a little bit of that's changed now, but once you show you know what you're doing, once you show that you care about them, once you show that you can win, that's all they care about.
That's,
In the end. So there's a surprise. I mean, like men come in and it's assumed they know what they're doing. Whereas I think women probably still today have to show that they know what they're doing
absolutely.
for the most part. But, I was fairly well received, and I ended up coaching there at the college level and then professionally and internationally.
So how did you make the jump from college level and then to was international sort of did it go college international and then professional?
So I met Mike Beck, who, if anyone's a baseball historian, he was part of the disco demolition happened of the Chicago White Sox.
Ah,
And he also had helped Isla Borders become a professional baseball player with the men. So I went up to him and said I'd like to coach for him. And in the end, I ended up coaching with the Brockton Rocks while I was getting my PhD in
ah,
sports psychology at Springfield. So I was able to coach at that assistant level and then go into the independent pro baseball. And that was, very difficult
yeah.
because it hadn't been done before. And so not everybody agreed. But that barrier, once I crossed that barrier, then things started to get not easier, but I was able to at least show what was possible.
Well, you had this track record of breaking down and kind of opening the way for
Yeah,
others.
so then I threw BP to major league teams, and that made a lot of history. And so then I got invited to scout school, and that's where I realized that there's like a loophole there was a loophole at the time in Major League Baseball where they would allow international coaches to come in and coach for instructional league, which is in the fall for like players they want to get more work in. And I'm like, hey, if they were willing to do that, then maybe they're willing to let me in because I'm out of the pipeline, right? I'm out of the traditional pipeline.
Right, exactly.
So I went back to Billy Bean, who was the first person to say I could throw batting practice
Oh my
to. And I
gosh.
was like, can I come coach? He said no. And then every year for 4 years, I would ask him,
Hey,
and
Billy.
I would just say, like, hey, I got my PhD. Hey, I'm a scout. Hey, like just making myself better and better and better. And then in the fourth year, I got a yes. And so I actually coached for 10 days with the Oakland Asian Instructional League, and it took a lifetime to get there. But that 10 days was like the light bulb that, hey, this is possible. And after me, other women got an opportunity to coach.
Which is absolutely huge. Because I asked that question because one of the things, and in boards, oftentimes, it is, while it's still hard for women to get executive roles in the States, same thing with on certain boards, often it is easier to go overseas internationally and get it and then enter through the side door that way. And so I
Mhm.
was just kind of curious if there was, some parallel there with the sports world. So seems like there is. Well, so now you've got this PhD in sports psychology. How did that,
Yes.
how, sometimes these things are helpful, sometimes they're too theoretical, they're not practical. How did it influence your coaching style?
Yeah, well, I decided to get a PhD when I was 15 and 16, creating
Oh
that
my
plan.
God, Justine, come on.
And I didn't know how I was going to do it because I have some learning disabilities. But I was like, if I don't have the same playing opportunities as men, I figured I'd out educate them. That was my
Oh,
plan. I mean, no one was giving me these ideas. I just came up with them
that's
for
smart.
better
These
or
are all
worse.
workarounds. These are all workarounds, and it's
Um,
smart.
and so I did end up getting to coach at the college level because I was pursuing a PhD, right? It was an easier sell than coming in kind of cold the other way. I
Right.
mean, I was already at school. I think that for me, my PhD in sports psych it wasn't just theoretical. Yes, I could have focused on the theoretics, right? I could become a
Yeah.
researcher, but it just became who I am, like more of me. How do I identify motivation? What's the best way to communicate? How does someone else learn best? Those are things you just start, it just becomes in how you communicate, like how you're relating to your player and your team. Of course, I know skills of how to help with concentration and so forth, but often just how you're able to make up another person their best selves is understanding who they are. And I think I was able to do that with my doctorate. Get a better jump on it at least.
Yeah, because I would think too that in certain situations, especially if you're the one female voice and you're out there coaching and leading, there would be, are there some go-to practices that you have to help when you see a player rattled and you can literally see them just lose, just getting in their head, right? And
Mhm.
you're like, oh my God, you're going to just mentally mind F yourself out of this whole situation. How do you like interject and intervene? Because it's a lot like when you're, again, a manager, a corporate leader, and you're seeing producer go down the tubes for some reason or another.
Mhm. I mean, everyone is different, but being available. There are certainly players that I sat down next to on purpose, and I have a pretty easygoing vibe. So I definitely heard, like troubles of all kinds from, having trouble hitting to having trouble with their girlfriend. I
That's
heard
what I
all of
was
it.
thinking. Mhm.
So I think having that feeling availability allows people to come and ask for your troubles. And a great example of this, and one of the reasons why, I can really just say, at least I know I'm proof that diversity matters, is that when I was with the A's, I mean, I was there a short time, but my job was not to teach hitting or teach pitching. Like I was just in a support role. And so there was a guy who was having trouble hitting, and we're surrounded by former pro players.
Yeah.
They're all coaches, they're former players, they're all the things that people say you have to be a good coach. But he's having trouble hitting, and he decides to come to me with this trouble, and he shares it with me.
Wow.
And he shares what's his challenge, and so that I'm able to give him a response that comforts him, and that my vibe, that he didn't go to the others, he came to me because this is where he felt safe, and right, and that's a bonus of diversity, right? So he
Absolutely.
comes, I'm able to give him what he needs, and he goes out and he hits a home run, and then the next at bat he hits a double. And it's just proof that the more people you can get on your staff, the more people you're going to reach.
Right, who offer differing opinions and different
Mhm.
vibes for that matter. Well, so now let's talk a little bit about preparation. Because I know one of the things you've shared is, confidence comes from preparation. So what does that look like for you? Like mentally, emotionally, physically, before, walking into a room where you're going to be, where you most likely be underestimated. Although I can't believe that still happens. And please tell me it doesn't happen anymore.
Well, I would say that you get underestimated, or you simply, I think there's still a lot of women in sports who aren't necessarily given the full
What they're due.
freedom.
Yeah.
Yes, like, yes, you're good at this, do this. Not in the same way that they might give, a male peer. For preparation, for me, it's just repetition and practice,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
physically, that's something. There are things that, like, if you think of an athlete, a lot of it's repetition, right? Like, I just happen to know that if I go into the batting cage, which is what I would do, and just hit 95 miles an hour, that when it comes in at 75, that's slow.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, right, that's just like one easy way that I like got through high school. I got through high school hitting. So, but like when it comes to public speaking, for example, I might say to myself, like, just speak with your heart, like an opportunity to serve, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
really changing what I'm preparing other than resetting my mindset and what I'm focused on.
True. True. Well, so now let's talk about the big thing, the big behemoth, the Women's Pro Baseball League that I know you are launching in 2026, which is such a huge milestone. And I know you've got a virtual draft coming up, right?
We do this month. I welcome everyone to follow us on socials because it is going to be an online draft, and you'll be able to see it all through our, like, just follow our socials because everything is not, things are changing, things are growing so
Yeah.
quickly. It's the best way to stay on top of everything. Sometimes even I have to, I find out, oh, this is happening because there's so many things, and we have more than me working on the leagues.
How did you come up with this idea?
I didn't come up with this idea. I mean, of course, women in baseball have come up with the idea of pro baseball for a long time. It was just a
Before.
matter
Yeah.
of how was it going to happen.
Right.
And my co-founder, Keith Stein, did some research on who he wanted as a partner. And he thankfully came up with me, and he called and said, will you do this league with me? And yeah, it was pretty easy to say yes.
Yeah. Twist my arms. So are you at liberty to share like how many teams we can expect, or is that all going to depend on the draft size, or how does that all work?
Yeah, we have four teams. We're playing in a neutral site for this year, meaning one site, all four teams. But
Uh-huh.
we've identified our cities, which is Boston, New York, LA, and San Francisco as our first top four cities. So when we go into 27 and 28, we'll be looking into those cities as to where our hosts are. And while we're single entity modeled now, we're looking at franchises in the future in the next few years. So four teams is really just the beginning to,
Oh,
what will
yeah.
soon become an 8-12 and more league. So it's very exciting, not just because the players will have a chance to showcase how good women are in baseball, but we're also creating an ecosystem where women won't be overlooked for jobs that are on and off the field.
Right. That's what I was exactly thinking was it's so much beyond.
Certainly. And, obviously there's wonderful men out there who are fun to work with and
Oh,
champion
yeah,
women.
yeah, yeah.
And we'll be hiring men as well, but no one has to walk on the field and show that they know what they're doing, right? We get the same respect because we're here.
Exactly. And I was just going to say to me, I think to me, that'll be one of the best parts. And I think will encourage other entities to do, it'll literally be an integrated group effort, men and women,
Absolutely.
working together, doing this and recognizing it. And then that just shifts everything, hopefully, from this point on. So in your mind, then, what does success look like for the league beyond the scoreboard, as you would say?
I mean, success is fans, right?
Yep.
We want fans to watch our games, to come out, to grab a hot dog, bring their friends, bring their family, have an affordable night out on a summer evening, which to me is like the greatest
Oh, yeah.
summer evening at a ballpark. And
Defines it.
and and seeing women play baseball at such a passionate level, we're one of the few sports where women don't have a counterpart. We have played with men. We played with boys, so we play with men, and
You're
now we
right.
get to play with other women. So there is a refinement in that, and a just a deep passion of a lifetime of work of overcoming to get to those moments, and you're going to see that in the play. And also, you'll be able to watch streaming. We'll be announcing our broadcasting rights and
Awesome.
obviously social media. You're just going to fall in love with these women and their stories.
I just think it's fantastic that it's all happening. And so here's the thing. A lot of people, baseball's always been sort of America's pastime or whatever, but it's also, some have said it's been something of a mirror for society in your view. So with that, what is baseball teaching us now, kind of about inclusion and leadership and change?
Yeah, I'd say sports is a great reflection, and it's also a vehicle that we can make social change. And I just remember my grandfather. I said, "Did you root for Jackie Robinson?" And we're Jewish, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, he represented all of us. We were all rooting for him." As
Yeah.
immigration and everybody coming in with different religions and you know so I know that sport can create social change, and so I think in baseball right now over 40% of Major League Baseball fans are women, and yet we hand girls a different ball, and
Yep.
that seems crazy to me, and this is
I
not a
agree.
knock on softball. It's just crazy to me. And so it's very exciting that now there'll be pro softball and pro baseball for women so that girls can see that both sports are there for them.
Are theirs and they can choose which as opposed to having it chosen for them.
Yes, or having to ask permission to be there.
That's the latter part is the worst part of all. And you've said you've got a fiercely one of your greatest prides is your fiercely independent daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I love them. I've got two myself. How has motherhood informed your leadership?
Well, I had my daughter in college. So my
Ah,
daughter has been with me my entire adult life.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
and so, we were always in talks, right? Like,
Yep.
right? Because I always wanted to put her first, but at the same time, she understood that I had sort of this goal and mission. I started a nonprofit called what is now Baseball for All, because when I had my daughter, it was a light bulb moment for me to see that there's more than my career, that I could create something better for the next generation.
Right.
And that if my daughter wanted to play baseball, there's no way I was going to let her go through what I went through. And that, then becomes a symbol for all the daughters who
Yes.
deserve to get a chance to play. So I think the first was just a shift in paradigm, right? Just a shift that it's not just me. It's now us, but it's also a future. And so there was that, but also just on my hardest days, the days you want to quit and you just come home and there's that love. And it's just enough to fill your tank and go out again the next day.
Isn't that the truth? I think it's really, really true. It's a great reminder. And I would think, especially in your situation, with everything you faced and handled and endured, exactly that. Looking at that smile, it's like, oh man, I want to do everything I can. So you have as few days like I feel right now in your future. Oh my goodness. Well, so in closing, knowing what you know now, if you could go back and say something, whisper something in the ear of you, your younger self, what would you tell her?
I think I kind of set out and did what I thought I would do. I mean, I never thought baseball would become my whole life, really. I mean, honestly, I loved soccer. I thought I'd be a college soccer coach.
Oh,
Seems like a pretty good life, huh?
yeah, no kidding.
I think one as a shy child, I would have said that people around me, like my peers, did not know what they were doing either. Like just this kind of like I'm not the one odd man out. We're all odd men out, and we all are just trying to like follow each other's cue and get there. And I think that would have made me feel a little less lonely if I had known that everyone was struggling to find their way.
The same degree. The same
And
degree. Yeah.
and I think, it's something that we need to remind ourselves as women and as a community that, we may have a stronger center of who we are, but we're all still struggling and new pathways and new obstacles that we're going through, and that none of us are perfect, no matter who's up on that podium. And, we're all just getting through. And, there's so many beautiful things about life, but life is also hard, and that we should be here for each other.
Absolutely. Have each other's back.
Mhm.
And frankly, there's always something that, one can teach others, but also that's on the flip of that. There's so much you can learn from every single person who ever passes your life. There are no coincidences.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, Justine, thank you so much for making the time. I want to make sure everyone knows November 20th, right, is the day of the draft.
The 20th. Yes,
Awesome.
come onto our socials. But check it out now because we've got a lot of preview, and we're announcing where we're playing this summer in a couple weeks. So
Which is really exciting. And we'll have all that information in the blog. I'll do everything I can to rabble rouse and spread the word. And
I appreciate it.
you listeners know I've got a big mouth.
Yes, and I promise fun and a good time when you come
That's
into a game.
that's huge. Justine, thank you for everything that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Till next time. Wasn't that great? It never ceases to amaze me how some of the people who are making the biggest shifts and causing the greatest changes in true, systems are often more likely than not mild-mannered, but they're persistent and consistent, and they're not getting distracted by all the hoopla and fanfare that can come about as a result. That to me is actually one of the takeaways. Number two is the power of when somebody says, no, you can't, the power of the human spirit and turning right around and saying, okay, yeah, well, watch me. And then lastly, this whole notion that, everyone is really doing the best that hopefully for the majority, people are really trying to do. They don't know. Everyone's trying to do the best that they can. And when you're young and confused, just know everybody has questions. So go ahead, be the brave one and ask what's going on with those around you. I will say, please join me on November 20th for the live draft for the Pro Women's Baseball League. And if you are listening to this later, go check out their site, buy the tickets for those 4 teams, San Francisco, LA, Boston, and New York. There's going to be so much, and let's just watch this movement unfold. Until next time, game on.
Thanks for listening. May this episode inspire you to move forward. Be sure to go to iTunes, Spotify, katebyrne.co, that's KATEBYRNE.co, or wherever you listen to your podcasts and listen to even more episodes. Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. And be sure to meet them on the next Women Advancing. Ta till next time.